Good afternoon, everyone. I'd like to call the Community Development Committee to order. As customary, let us bow our heads for meditation, invocation. Amen. Moving right along. With public participation, I think we have one individual, Mr. Anthony Bryan.
Yes, that is
A
correct.
minute and a half. And we also have some information that was sent to us online. I think you can read all this information. You'll have it in your packet.
Mr. Bryan, if you're with us online, you can press *6. You have a minute and a half.
Anthony G. Bryant, President A.G. Bryant Group, Inc. Respectfully, the city of North Charleston had a chase inside of the city of Charleston. It was brought to my attention. I sued the city of North Charleston, city of Charleston, and the Federal Bureau of Investigation. Based upon Glenn Smith clearly stated the crime report that anyone who files frivolous lawsuits, Joe Dawson basically is a public recommended, a former county attorney who I made public comment against regarding his fees on the county, and that was deemed a paper terrorist. So a paper terrorist can't be the president of Garden Hill Neighborhood Association. A paper terrorist not protected by the police. A paper terrorist not protected by nobody. I want to give you notice in the fact that A.G. Bryant Group, Inc. is going to be working on due process and working on other issues around the issue of writing. In South Carolina, a slave could not write at all. We had no right to write, period. So the fact that I'm in a good company of those who could not write about the injustices going on in South Carolina and in Charleston County. Thank you and have a pleasant day.
Thank you, Mr. Bryan. We move right on to minutes of the approval for minutes. Excuse me?
Yeah, Chairman, I'm so sorry, but I did submit a comment on innovation that was accepted as far as I knew, so.
Yeah, that's what I was alluding to when I tell everyone to read the information that was sent online. That's why I was telling them that they receive it in their package.
So I can't deliver it in person.
Well, we have a public participation link, speaker sign-up list, and then we have the comment list. And we received the comments and we sent it out to the committee in advance of the meeting.
Well, since you're here, I'll give you a minute.
Thank you, sir. I appreciate it. Sorry, I haven't learned the new system. So yes, I'm thanking Chairman Mitchell and the council members of the Community Development Committee. I am here. I have submitted by email to the city clerk. Thank you for circulating that. The suggested edits to the ordinance to reestablish park or revise the establishment ordinance that was originally adopted for Hark in 2022. In sum, I earnestly oppose any changes to the establishment ordinance that eliminate what I believe is the essence of Hark's purpose and mission. That essence is Hark's equity lens focus on our city's stated willingness and demonstrated actions to decrease, close, and eliminate the disparities gaps that were demographically and statistically researched and determined in the 2018 Avery Center Charleston County Disparities Report. Working toward a future end to those recognized gaps is the drumbeat of Hark. Please do not change the membership selection criteria or any aspects of this purpose to veer away from the expertise or involvement with those named disparities subject areas. In my opinion, there can be no reason to require anything less definitive. Thank you.
Thank you, former councilman. So we move right along to item number B, approval of the minutes of March 20th. Was moving second. All in favor vote by saying aye.
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 Opposes? Ayes have it. Well, no have any old business, so we're going down to new business. That's a resolution certifying one building site on abandoned building pursuant to South Carolina Abandoned Building Revitalization Act of 2013, Title 12, Chapter 67, Section 12-67.
Move for approval. Second.
It was moving second. All fit by vote by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposes?
Aye.
Ayes have it. We move right along to item number 2. Discussion and potential vote on how to move forward with the city's investment in West Edge. Is somebody going to be
Yep,
able to?
I'll take over that, Mr. Chairman. So,
Excuse me? All right.
you- so I've been in conversations with MUSC-F and MUSC proper about the future of West Edge, and we've had several discussions with the West Edge Foundation about what's going to happen there. And there's been an incredible amount of work that's done there. It's been a real success. But the original principles and plan for that area of being a bioresearch campus, if you will, have changed dramatically, particularly when Roper decided to move their location off of the peninsula, and MUSC went and bought or is buying their campus. So they want to keep, MUSC wants to keep their biotech and research on the Calhoun corridor, and we're working very closely with them at the city to allow them to do just that. They're calling it the Innovation District. So as a result of that pivot, their needs for that type of use at West Edge are no longer as acute. So what we do have a real need for, and MUSC has a real need for, as evidenced by our Bloomberg report, is housing. And while there certainly was consideration for some housing being there, that's some of the first developments that went at West Edge, it's not exactly workforce housing right now. And so we're looking at that as a future location for significant amounts of housing that would be mixed income, that would still also have opportunities for commercial space. But because MUSC is, and by extension MUSC-F, not as involved in the day-to-day in that area, we've talked about them getting out of the partnership, and it would give the city complete control. And so we've both ordered an appraisal on the property. The appraisals came back in at approximately, I want to say, $100 million. And the city owns 65%. I believe that's, we roughly own 2/3, and MUSC owns 1/3. So what we've talked to them about, so that's $35 million in value for MUSC-F, and plus there's $10 million in cash sitting in the account. Plus there's about another $15 or $20 million in TIF funds that have been already bonded that the city has, or MUSC Foundation really has control over. So the idea that was proposed to MUSC Foundation, West Edge Foundation, would be for the city to buy out MUSC-F for $25 million, with the condition that we would have a real commitment to workforce housing on the land, on that property. And the way we would tentatively do that is we would give them immediately the $10 million in cash that's sitting in the West Edge Foundation account. The foundation board would remain in place. The board members would remain in place, with the one exception that the 3 board seats that are currently appointed and controlled by MUSC-F would become null and void. They wouldn't exist anymore. So there would be 4 at-large seats and 3 city-appointed seats. I think I'm asking Councilman Gregory here, who has a lot more institutional knowledge on this project than I do. And the board voted unanimously to approve that. Now, this would be brought before City Council to, in essence, buy out the balance of MUSC-F. It would require us again to release the $10 million and give that all to MUSC-F. And we'd have a period of time under terms to be determined to pay the remaining $15 million balance. There is money right now in the TIF to do that, though we could also come up with it over time and we would own an asset worth $100 million. So we could sell 10% of the property, 15% of the property, and probably have no more debt or basis on the property. So I think it makes a lot of sense. The idea, again, is for us to control that property. It is pretty entitled, thanks to all the hard work that the foundation has done over the years. But really to shepherd its redevelopment with third-party private sector and the housing authority, who's contiguous to us and is doing a major renovation or rethinking of Gadsden Green. So I know this is a lot to take in, but there have been a lot of conversations about this over the years. I do think financially it is a win for MUSCF, but it's a win for the city too. So I think it gives us a cleaner and clearer future for that site and a lot more control to expedite something going there that would really benefit the community. So that's the gist of it. I'm happy to open it up for any questions if the chair would allow.
Okay, any questions? Councilman Gregory?
Not really a question. Ditto. Okay. The only part of it that I'm still a little concerned about is to take the TIF 15, 16, 20 million to be a part of acquisition. The city's acquiring a lot of property, and I think it's good to have site control, but we've got to be in a position also to start going vertical. And I do see the potential of doing that if we were able to use some of the TIF dollars, okay,
Sure.
to help to go vertical. And finally, working in conjunction with the Housing Authority as it relates to Gadsden Green. We have already talked preliminarily about if something happens to Gadsden Green, we can use some of the land of the foundation as a build first position for the Housing Authority. They have already, if I'm not mistaken, decided who the developer may be for Gadsden Green. We've already had some discussions, preliminary discussions with them. And one of the things that they did talk about was trying to make sure that when we finally demolish Gadsden Green, that the folks that are there can really still stay in the community. And that's why the build first idea is a very good idea regarding the use of some of the land in conjunction with the Housing Authority. Just wanted to put that out there.
Thank you. Councilwoman Parker?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Pardon me if my wires are crossed, but just, can you give me some backstory here? Is the lawsuit?
It's been settled.
It's been settled, okay.
For one.
How,
Big difference.
okay, so this area, I mean, I remember being here when a lot of folks, I mean, do folks want us to build here? Because I feel like we got a lot of,
The question is,
regarding the I know that was, you know, in regard to the existing West Edge and the filling of the
So-
creek. I
so-
mean, is this impacting, I assume that the similar?
well, it's a huge piece of property.
Mhm.
So what was controversial was the creek itself and filling the creek. And that represents about 2 acres of the 18 acres. So there's plenty of place to, property to build on. And, you know, whether or not, I mean, right now we have the permit to fill the creek. And the Supreme Court of South Carolina sided with the city in that lawsuit. There's still plenty of people that are opposed to doing the creek. And there's a lot of continuing conversations about the dump itself, the battery extension, Haygood Avenue. I mean, there's a lot of complexity on this. And that is one of the reasons, candidly, why I think it makes sense for the city to have, as a 65% current owner, complete control. If we can get a reasonable, you know, discounted price from our partner, which they're willing to do, and give us terms to close, so we're not being fiscally irresponsible or using money from the TIF. It was just an idea.
I understand.
But I think we can find a way to, be it through sales of land, to come up with that $15 million balance in relatively short order that, again, would leave us in complete control to work with the private sector to develop it with the condition that there would be significant workforce housing and job creation in the area.
Mayor, again,
Sorry?
Okay, just quick follow-up. So, I mean, we would fill the creek if, I know that's a ways away. I mean, we're just talking about buying the property, but
That's to be determined. I mean, we have the right to do it, and there are plenty of people that want to do it. There are other alternatives, but it depends on a lot of how the development evolves.
okay. And if we sold it, the new buyer would have to.
We
come
wouldn't
in.
sell all of it.
Okay. Okay,
Mayor, if I may,
all right, thank you.
we've been talking about West Edge for a long time. And folks really don't know what West Edge is. They've never seen it, okay? Mayor, I've been working with our communications, Deja, we have a film, okay? It probably needs updating, but even without the updating, I think it would give everyone a sense of what has been accomplished at West Edge. So perhaps at our next council meeting, we can show that film.
Right.
And I think it might answer some of your questions.
Yes, it probably would.
Yes.
Mr. Chairman, if I may, the gist of what I asked for this to be on I would like to bring this to council for discussion. Ultimately, we need to go through Ways and Means. But I think coming through this first with the idea that hopefully this committee would approve moving forward with details to be determined. We've not papered anything. That would ultimately need to be coming through council as well. But moving forward with the general concept of buying out MUSCF, they are taking the same proposal to their board now. And provided we both are in agreement, we would work out the details to bring back to council and their board for final approval. So that's where we are.
Okay, so
Is that a motion, Mr. Mayor?
I would motion that this committee recommend to full council for Ways and Means approval of the buyout of MUSCF from West Edge Foundation at a price not to exceed $25 million, with the understanding that 10 million of that would come from the cash on hand, and the balance would be paid out over time based on terms to be determined and approved by council.
Second?
okay, it's moving second. You have heard the motion, because I'm not going to try to repeat it. So, any questions? Well, all I want to say is that, this was a long time seizure back there on Gadsden Green, and with West Edge was a long time coming. And like some people don't know, but Gregory, Councilman Gregory and I, we grew up around in that area way back when. And it was a lot of things, even Gadsden Creek. We used to play in Gadsden Creek. I got tear up a lot of time for going back there, because we were kind of bad, mischief, say to speak. Used to jump in the creek and play in the creek and stuff and all the muds and stuff. But so it's, things have changed since then. And so I'm happy to see that something is going to be happening back in that area, because if you ever drive through there when the rain comes and the flooding in that street back there, it's terrible. And I drive back there all the time, and I mean, you can't get through. You got to go in the middle of the street and turn around and come back. So all this probably will assist in even getting that street repaired, if you may, to make it better in that particular area. So if we can get this going, and also looking at the public housing back in Gadsden Green. I grew up back there too. And Councilman Gregory did too, and back in Gadsden Green. It's a little different now, but it needs to be updated back there because it's a long time. It's old, and that's why they cannot repair it like it should, because it's a new retrofitting and all this. It's not going to work on that old type building. So even if we can come up with something, even to work with the housing authority in some sense, in doing something to build, to move the individuals, because I would hate to see all these individuals move off the peninsula. We don't need to have that happening. You know, that's going to lose a lot of people, and we don't want to do that. And I always push myself, if we know, to keep a diverse community, if you may. And so this is the type of things that I look for all the time and doing things like that. So, no, any other questions? None? All in favor, vote by saying aye.
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 Opposed, nay. So
Aye.
I'll let the Councilman,
Mr. Chairman, I'm
Council
going to
Parker.
abstain, just with all due respect, until I see the West Edge presentation. Okay.
That's fine.
Thank you.
Okay. So in the Ways and Means in the council, I'll let the mayor explain that same motion, because I'm not going to even try to. Okay, thank you. So we'll move right on down to, where are we now? The presentation of the rising middle. Huh? Wanted to
Yes.
rise in the middle with.
Yes, sir, Mr. Mitchell. Thank you for having me today.
All right.
I'm Josh Dix. I'm the Vice President Advocacy for the Charleston Trident Association of Realtors, and we have spent the better part of a year studying missing middle housing in Charleston and North Charleston. And so we really appreciate the opportunity to come be with y'all today and to talk about our study. And thank you, Gianna and her team, for setting all this up for us. This is a project that we embarked on a little over a year ago. We worked with the planning staff, City of Charleston and North Charleston, as well as the BCD COG, to look at the Low Country Rapid Transit Corridor and see how can we better build along that corridor and promote transit-oriented development. We went out and hired Opticos, who are the global leader on missing middle housing. They literally wrote the book on missing middle housing. And so we were really excited to bring this resource to Charleston and to talk about housing in our region. And I don't think it's any surprise to y'all. Your Bloomberg study has highlighted it. Our study touches on it, but the cost of housing in our region is getting increasingly out of reach for more and more people. We looked at the window between 2012 and 2022, and the cost of housing in Charleston County alone has gone up 87%, while the median income has only gone up 27%. And that just really makes housing unattainable for a lot of folks in our region. When you look at the city of Charleston, the median income is just over $83,000, but the median home price is in 2024, it was $577,000. It's a little closer to $600,000 today. But when you're trying to keep folks affordable and not stress households, the median income household, that home needs to be more in that $400,000 to $450,000 range. And we are just not seeing that in our region. Over 51% of renters in the city of Charleston are housing cost burden. Just over a quarter of homeowners in the city are housing cost burden. And that really puts a lot of stress on a household when you're trying to balance not only your mortgage and utilities, but taking care of your family, your kids, household needs. So we started to look at where can we improve housing in our region. And looking at the zoning, our zoning is really set up for traditional single family homes, or your larger scale multifamily homes. And missing middle is everything from your duplex to that small, 10-plex, townhomes, cottage court style homes, smaller footprint, to where we can maximize building area, where really we're looking at a lot of infill opportunities. And to me, the beauty of missing middle housing is its scale. It allows for housing to really blend into the built environment, where you don't have a large multifamily building right up next to single family homes. And so because of that reason, we're really excited about missing middle homes, but we want to get that introduced into our zoning throughout the region. These are diverse housing types, and we have a very diverse population in our region. Being able to meet people where they are and what their housing needs are, we think this type of housing, duplexes, cottage court homes, that can provide those opportunities for folks that maybe are just a little out of reach in our region. It promotes, again, diverse housing opportunities. Access to transit is a big piece of this. But missing middle homes, it really builds a sense of community, which I think is what we're all in the business to try to do. It's sustainable. It doesn't really exacerbate sprawl, which we're seeing a lot in our region. And most importantly, this provides a pathway to home ownership and allow folks to start to build equity. And, that's really how we've seen folks develop generational wealth, is through home ownership and real estate. And just to kind of give you a sense of who's looking for missing middle housing, this comes from the American Planning Association. But millennials now, people born since 1980, are the largest segment of home buyers in the United States today. And they do not want a yard or a lot of responsibility. They want minimal responsibility, to be honest with you. And then you have the baby boomer generation who they're downsizing. They want to limit that yard and maintenance and all that work. And so you have the two largest segments of buyers in the country, and they're both looking for essentially the same thing: dense, walkable communities near restaurants and amenities that really build that quality of life that we love so much here in the Charleston area. And in our study, we looked at the Low Country Rapid Transit Corridor. But again, this type of housing, this will be essential for any of our corridors. When you're looking at the Sam Rittenberg Boulevard or Savannah Highway, Maybank, anywhere where there's existing infrastructure that can best absorb it, we think this type of housing can really promote TOD, transit-oriented development. And around the station areas, that's where you're really going to have that most intense use. But how do we build in the transition areas between the TOD stations, but also how do you transition from the high impact density of a station into a single family neighborhood? And we feel like you can transition that through missing middle housing. And so we kind of look at LCRT in a couple different bands. You have the within a quarter mile of LCRT, that's going to be your traditional most intense use, but that is a walkable station area. Within a half a mile, you're talking about a short little bike ride or a 10-minute walk, but that's going to be your moderately dense build out. And then within a mile, again, you can maybe take a 10-minute bike ride, but this would also be more of your probably park and ride style development a mile away from the transit area. These are mixed income, mixed use neighborhoods. Again, they're pedestrian oriented. They support multimodal access. They create those transitions. And I think the most important piece is that, one size doesn't fit all. This is, again, a diverse housing type. And so you can really mold it to fit the built environment that we're looking at. And we include a lot of schematics just to give a visual. One of the hardest things to do is to sell an idea to people. And we want to make sure that what we're doing doesn't naturally or adversely impact these communities. And so you can see through some of these schematics, it is a varying type of housing that we're talking about. And it kind of blends seamlessly with a lot of the built environment in the city of Charleston. But going back to LCRT, that runs through the core of our region. One important thing is that we don't want to recommend any policies that are going to have a negative impact on our community. And if you look at the 2020 census numbers, that center area, that is the most cost burden section of our region. 36 to 45% of the people living in that dark area our cost burden. And so how do we create affordable options for people that aren't going to displace them? And through our research, one of the things that we found is that this corridor is probably the most vulnerable of the region to displacement. And so we really want to be sensitive to these housing recommendations that we can get ahead of this and not, displace people that have lived here for generations. And this is a real eye-catching graphic that this is the most vulnerable section of our region is along this corridor. And so having diverse housing types that kind of meet people where they are, we think can hopefully get ahead of the curve and not really displace folks that have been living here for quite some time. And as we're going through this research, we've been working with both municipalities and the COG to identify barriers. We want to increase supply, but we understand that new construction alone isn't going to do that. So we want to work and recommend preservation techniques to keep people in their homes, in their communities, that they can continue to keep that culture that we see throughout the region. And so we lay out a lot of these strategies in our phase 1 study. Some of the important things that I want to highlight is that, we didn't do this in a vacuum. Gianna and her team were really helpful about assembling neighborhood groups and community leaders to be a part of this. Once we had done the bulk of our research, we held a gut check session with a lot of our neighborhood presidents from North Central and just the surrounding area where LCRT is going to be. We had community leaders from North Charleston, and what we presented to them, they felt is a great representation of what their communities are experiencing. And so we feel confident in this report and our research, and hopefully it leads to some positive outcomes when we talk about the zoning rewrites. But one of the big things that we realized in this, and I think if you attend any planning commission or BZA meeting, there's just a genuine fear of the unknown. We want to be a part of the education to talk about this and to help folks understand that what we're recommending, we're not trying to push people out or, usher people in. We want to make a community that works for everyone. And so this is going to be a long process, but one of the great things that we have is we have these examples in our community. This is a fourplex in Wagner Terrace. We had Opticos come to Charleston and we did walking tours of both the city of Charleston and North Charleston. But we don't have to go somewhere else to see these examples. They exist all around us. This is a missing middle project in North Charleston that it's through a PD. But we want to look at potentially allowing these uses by right. We've done a lot of works on ADUs, but this is a kitchen house from the 1800s. That was the original ADU before we had zoning. The old carriage house was the original ADU. So these examples are all around us. We've launched a website, charlestonmissingmiddle.com, that houses our phase 1 study. And so this is part of our public education, is to come and work with the councils in both of our both cities. The city, I know, is going through a zoning rewrite, and that'll be a years-long process. North Charleston is kicking off a zoning rewrite. They have a RFP on the street now to bring in a firm to redo their zoning code. And so we feel like this is a great opportunity to talk about these housing types and to hopefully get them ingrained into the zonings of both Charleston and North Charleston when those documents are updated. And we are kicking off our phase 2 study, where we're going to be doing feasibility analysis and deep dive of some study areas. Our goal is to pick 8 study areas along LCRT, evenly split between Charleston and North Charleston, and to really run the pro formas and try to develop, what type of density are we going to need to be able to attract affordable development along these corridors. what type of partnerships, just like what y'all were talking about with West Edge, public-private partnerships are how we're going to have to address the housing issues in our region. I don't think the private sector can do it alone. The public sector surely can't do it alone. And so, working together, public and private, we want to hopefully bring a zoning matrix that works for both the city of Charleston and North Charleston, and look at, how do we identify more barriers and what are some solutions to eliminate those barriers. We don't just want to, identify something without a plan in place. And then also to look at missing middle housing by right. We hear that from a lot of developers. It's what is the path of least resistance? And, unfortunately, single family is the path of least resistance. So how do we encourage missing middle by right and to get it in the city's code and also North Charleston's code as well? Excuse me. But I wanted to be very brief. I hope I kept it in my allotted time, Gianna, but this is a resource that we were excited to bring to the city of Charleston. It was great working with the planning staffs in both municipalities and to collectively try to think through these problems and to provide some solutions. And we hope to be a resource and part of the conversation. But I just want to say thank you for your time. And Chairman Mitchell, thank you for giving me the space to talk about missing middle housing. So I'll leave it there.
Thank you very much for that presentation. Do you have any questions?
Councilmember McBride has his hand up online, just FYI.
Yeah, thanks, Chairman Mitchell and Mr. Dix. It was a great presentation, and I just downloaded the 99-page report from the website that you mentioned. So very good, a lot of really good detail. I wanted to bring up just kind of for sake of discussion, and this goes with the Bloomberg study as well. What I'm not seeing, first of all, the problem is very, very prescient. The cost of living is just insane in Charleston. It's affecting, of course, our firefighters, all our first responders, teachers, other, middle-income workers just cannot afford or find it very difficult to afford to live in the area. So this is a very, very needed study and effort. Two questions that I have, or one question I have and one, I guess, kind of comment and a question. The first is, the cost of living is really high right now. What I haven't seen discussed yet, especially with the Bloomberg study, is if the demand goes down. So the demand is extremely high, exceeding supply, which is primarily why the prices are so high, plus the inflation we've had over the last several years. But if the demand goes down, significantly, and in the meantime, the city is investing in trying to find ways to add supply, there's the lag could be way behind, the demand curve going down, if you get what I'm saying. And then the second thing really quick is, if we increase the supply, which right now we got to find a way to bring the costs down by increasing supply. The problem, as we all know, painfully, is our infrastructure is so far behind, and we're so dependent on SCDOT, which so many of our roads in Charleston and throughout South Carolina are SCDOT roads. So let's just say, in 5 years, 10 years, we're able to increase supply to meet the demand, the cost of living goes down, our infrastructure is still woefully behind. And that's not a city's job necessarily, because again, it's SCDOT roads for the most part, but acknowledging that, what are your thoughts on that, on how we can integrate better with the state and with the county to get our infrastructure up to par?
Yeah, well, first we've got to pass a referendum in 2026 and fund from infrastructure locally. But, you do hit on a great point. This isn't, I don't think, one jurisdiction's responsibility. This is going to take all of us kind of chipping in our respective ways. But that's one reason the infrastructure being so far behind, we want to focus on infill redevelopment and putting a lot of this future growth along existing corridors where they can better absorb it rather than continuing to sprawl out and stressing our network of roads. And so, looking at LCRT, looking at Sam Rittenberg corridor and segments of Maybank Highway, obviously those aren't going to be equally as intense, but let's start by putting future growth and development along corridors that can absorb it, and then work with our regional and state partners and even federal partners to attract those dollars to better fund our infrastructure needs here. I hope that kind of helps answer your question.
Thank you.
Yeah, thanks. And what about the supply question as far as if the demand goes down?
Well, we're in a dynamic region. I don't see our demand going down anytime soon, and we're so far behind on inventory that it's going to take a decade plus to build our way out of this. Our region is expected to grow by 250,000 people by 2045, and LCRT, it's 1% of the landmass of our region, but it'll accommodate hopefully a quarter of our region's growth. And so, again, this is an opportunity to put people near existing infrastructure. I don't think the demand is slowing down anytime soon. We're just a desirable place to be for a lot of different reasons.
Thank you.
Thanks a lot for that. Appreciate it.
Councilman Gregory Hand, and then
Affordable housing, affordability in general, but affordable housing is just one aspect of affordability. Are you going to be pulling into your study affordable living?
Yes, that's part of what we're trying to get at with the cost burden analysis. And so, yeah, affordability is a very broad word. We all have affordable issues, whether it's high end or low income. And so, yes, that is part of what we're trying to identify, is that there are affordability issues across the board.
thank you, Councilwoman Parker.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chairman, and thank you for your presentation, Mr. Dix. This isn't a question for you, Mr. Dix, but maybe to our staff. Do we have current redevelopment incentives for this type of housing? If we were going to do a quadplex, what came to mind while you were presenting were some of our, I don't want to say old, just older aged houses that one might even see stormwater problems, that we've dealt with in our communities. But are there redevelopment incentives to maybe revitalizing those single family lots into, let's say quadplexes? Is that Ms. Johnson?
Johnson, I think
Well,
you can.
I can answer one of those questions, but you come on up. The one we approved the abandoned building credit is a perfect example. Granted, it's for an abandoned building, but that is to encourage infill development on old houses, and it's an incredibly valuable state credit. Historic tax credits, TIF proceeds,
Parking
LITAG.
incentives.
Yeah, but we have been, there's a balance to infill development, additional density, traditionally has been something that has been, not well received. But we're going to have to get more creative about it because, as pointed out, it's a pretty pressing need.
Follow up.
I would just add to the mayor's comments, Councilwoman Parker, that part of planning's efforts to rewrite the zoning is looking at that and encompassing additional strategies that can ensure we have a comprehensive incentives to help bring additional housing to the city.
Okay, thank you. One quick follow-up. Ms. Johnson, so can you give me an example? I know the abandoned building tax credit downtown, okay? So on the peninsula, it might look a little different than James Island, my district. So what can you just give me, just briefly, what does that look like? What does the incentive look like? There is a lot in particular that I'm thinking of, but is there one that you can think of that might have been, it's not abandoned, it's probably livable, but to revitalize and rehabilitate you know, a section of, whether it's a commercial lane, you know, Folly Road or something like that, what would an incentive be to a developer, a property owner to put in a quadplex or some two town?
So I will mention, for instance, we have parking incentives when you build affordable. So instead of doing a parking space 1-for-1, it's for every 4 units built, it's 1. So it saves costs on the amount of parking that you have to build. Another incentive is found under our mixed-use workforce housing ordinance that essentially has unlimited density. It's only limited by the size of the lot. So if you have a building that you're rehabilitating and/or a building that is being constructed newly, you have the ability to apply more density there. Naturally, more density enables, in most cases, more funding to come to that developer so that they can have a greater success in that particular development. So MU2 parking are 2 that come to mind off the top that has been used in the past.
Okay, thank you so much. MU2 does sound familiar in that particular situation. So ultimately, if a developer initiates one workforce or affordable unit, they can get some additional.
Correct. So there are percentages of affordable that's required as part of that, both
Okay.
from the standpoint of the percentage. So it's 20% for 25 years. So
Okay.
there are some strategies that we have, or restrictions, if you will, that we have in there that allow for that affordable workforce to be built in along with the mix or the market rate housing.
Okay.
Yes.
And just so, have we looked at strategies like is that coming with the zoning rewrite? Okay. All right. Then I'll end it there. Thank you.
Gregory?
Yeah. Are we looking into the incentivizing fee in lieu? I think fee in lieu, based upon the level, okay, gives the developers an out because it's so low. At some point, hopefully, we can get some redrafting of that ordinance to increase the fee in lieu of, to almost make it a disincentive for them to do the fee in lieu of and actually build workforce housing.
And in fact, you all approved that about 2.5 years ago.
Did we go to 20 though, right? Went up 20. Can we go up higher?
As far as percentage?
Yes, that's what I'm talking
So
about.
absolutely, you can go higher, but we made the fee more restrictive and more difficult so that it would encourage building on site.
Yeah.
But we can absolutely reevaluate that and see what else can be done. Upper Peninsula zoning is one. There is no out, if you will. You have to build it if you're opting for that particular zoning. Thank you.
I remember we did that. Oh, Councilman Pell.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Josh, great presentation. That fired me up so much. I might have to like play that when I'm working out or going to the beach. I'm just like, you were just preaching, man. I loved every word of it. The only comment I would say, I could talk for a long, long time about this, but nobody wants to hear that. I would just say that in a lot of ways, what we need to do is go back to the future. The city of Charleston had missing middle figured out in the 1800s, in the early 1900s, in the mid 20th century. It's only once we dropped suburban cookie cutter zoning on top of the peninsula that all of a sudden it became impossible to do what humans have been doing for centuries, namely get creative with housing. So in a lot of ways, the solution is not about adding more complexity and layering on more zoning and getting into all these super technocratic command and control, bureaucratic manipulation. Let's just get out of the way. We're the problem, not just Charleston, jurisdictions all over the country and all over the state. Like, we're trying to control everything so tightly. Sometimes you need to just let it fly. I'm just telling you, that's where the best practices in this area are moving in most parts of the country. Eliminating single family zoning, okay? What that means is that's not saying you can't have single family detached structures. It's just saying that's not the only thing you can have legally. It's allowing the market to get more creative. It's allowing the market to get back to what we've been doing. I mean, go to Europe, go to European cities all over the world. The best places in the world, the best places here. What are the best parts of our region? Downtown Charleston, Old Village, Mount Pleasant, parts of the district I represent that were developed before zoning, South Windermere, Riverland Terrace, these areas where there's a lot of diversity in housing, close to infrastructure, close to shopping and commercial nodes, Avondale, South Windermere, things of that nature. We know what to do. We had done it in a city that prides itself in historic preservation and the past and honoring tradition. I mean, the blueprint is there, and it's right under our nose. And I would just suggest that a lot of times the solutions from a regulatory perspective are not adding more complexity, adding more control. It's getting out of the way. So with that, I'll rest and appreciate having this discussion. We've come a long, long way. I mean, you wouldn't even be having this discussion 10 years ago, 20 years ago. So the fact that we're even talking about this is fantastic. So thank you all.
Thank you very much. We did a little of that anyway on the east side, because if you know, most of the homes that went down doing the bridge, they were single family homes, and there was a lot of single family homes that was there on that Lee Street corridor, and was beautiful homes. And we came back with multifamily homes there, like a Grace Homes and the James Lewis complex. So that was coming out of what we thought that's moving in a new direction. Thank you. Oh,
I was just going to say kudos to Councilman Appel. I think he made some great points, and I'm sure Mr. Dix is going to be sending him a gift basket for those inspirations.
It's ordinance to amend Chapter 2, that's administration, Article 4, Boards and Commission, Division 11, Human Affairs Commission, and Racial Conciliation.
Mr. Chairman, if I may.
Yes, Councilman Gregory.
Yeah, I think we were just given the latest draft. I really think we need to spend a little more time on this. I would really, at this point, move for a deferral and extend the HARC until September. That then gives us enough time to really assist our director, Adrian, to really continue to put a little more meat on this. That would be my recommendation at this point, to defer this, but at the same time extending the HARC until September.
I think technically by deferring it, it's extended anyway, but I'll second the motion.
Okay. We're moving second. All in favor, vote by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposers?
Aye.
Ayes have it. Is there anything else to bring before the committee? Committee can stand adjourned.